Welcome, Winmore residents, to Resident 101, Part 2 of a series of 4. This series, code Resident 101, is to inform residents who are not involved in the daily tasks of Winmore to get an understanding of Winmore. So our goal today is to answer the following questions for you. How does Winmore operate? And in this section, it will be grounds maintenance. What are the relationships between the council, your association, and you as the resident? And why does the council exist? And what should you expect from us? And what is the council? So today's episode will be on grounds maintenance. And I'd like to introduce our director of grounds maintenance, David Rivers. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Okay. And along with David, we have Jason Ellington, his assistant, and our lake supervisor. Jason, are you there? Say good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Okay, good. All right, so let's start with David. David, it's a big task. We got over, 360 acres here at Winmore of lawn?
Yeah, I lean towards 400, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, it expands in the summer.
It's getting bigger, yeah.
All right, and it's a big job, and you got a lot of divisions. Would you like to update Mrs. McGillicuddy as a resident, not as a director of Winmore's grounds maintenance operations?
Sure, yeah. The grounds department is made up of 4 divisions. We have a landscaping division, and they handle all of the mowing and the trimming of your bushes. We have an irrigation division that takes care of all the water that comes out of the pipes and the heads to make sure everything stays green and wet. We have a nursery division, and they're the guys that do the planting and the beautification. They create beds here and there. They replace plants. And we also have a tree division that takes care of all the arbor care, trimming the palms, trimming the trees, removing them as well, and replacing as contracted for. So we've got plenty of work to do, and a lot of the residents may or may not understand how to get certain things done, but that's why we have a structure within the associations as well. There's either a president or a director that calls the shots for your association. They're the ones that are responsible for calling the office and putting in work orders, requesting work, signing contracts, and doing things like that. We also request of each association that they appoint a landscape representative. Now that person may be making those calls in lieu of the president or director, but outside of that, we really don't like to get calls from the individual residents, because if every resident called, the phone would never stop ringing. So, and especially in incidents that may cost the association money, additional money, it's very important that these requests only come from those that are allowed to do that. And that would be the president, the director, or perhaps their landscape representative.
So as a resident, I don't have authority to ask you to do work because the association is going to be billed for it.
That's true. That's right. Now there are exceptions. If you walk out in the morning and there's a tree branch on your car, I fully expect to get a phone call from you, and that's fine. And if the situation occurs where we needed to contact a director and let them know about something, we can do that. But 9 times out of 10, your best bet is to just notify your director of the situation.
David, I moved in 30 years ago, and there's this little tree behind my unit, and I had this beautiful view of the golf course. 30 years later, the tree is like up in my patio, and I can't see anything. What can we do about that? You gonna come and cut it down for me?
Maybe, maybe not. It kind of depends. The city has some very strict laws about what they call vista pruning. It's inappropriate. A tree should be allowed to grow naturally. if it's touching the building or endangering people or could be a risk, there are situations that could allow for it to be removed. But again, there are procedures that must be followed. If it's a tree that the city will grant a permit to remove, they will require a replacement tree. It doesn't necessarily have to go back in the same spot though. So the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no.
David, let me check with Henry. Henry, is David's vocal levels okay with you?
I hear him fine. He is a
Okay,
little
good, because
far from
maybe
the.
it's me because it sounds a little low to me. But you're saying it's good for recording?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, David, for interrupting.
All right.
David, black olive trees. What's going on with those?
Oh, the black olive trees. We have quite a few of them, and I think they're attractive, but they need to be in the right spot. When they're hanging over the roads, certain times of years, we get a lot of staining on the roads from the berries and from the bugs that get into them. Out in a field, they're fantastic. I don't necessarily like to park my car under them, and I think the same case applies to many people. But in certain circumstances, we can remove them. We actually just did get a permit to remove some around the Andros pool. They're getting ready to do a lot of work in there, and they wanted to kind of open it up a little bit. So we applied for a permit, and I believe we took out 4 of those large black olive trees, and we'll be planting replacement trees that are more suitable for the area soon.
I was looking out my window and I thought we had a new fountain, but I found out it was a sprinkler head. What is the process if I see a sprinkler head broken? Should I give you guys a heads up? I just wait for somebody to come out.
Well, hopefully our guys are already on it and they'll take care of it. But we have quite a few sprinkler heads, and it's certainly possible we overlooked one. So notify your director, and the director will call and let us know that, hey, we've got a geyser in the back that's not supposed to be there.
If my director's out of town or just not available, can I call directly and give you guys a heads up?
Yes.
Okay, good. What's this with automatic sprinklers where if it's raining, they don't go on? A lot of controversy about that. I know, you have feelings on that?
Yeah, we have to follow strict guidelines also set up regarding sprinklers and running our irrigation. Only supposed to be running a couple of days a week. In cases of rain, though, there are automatic shutoffs that are attached to most of the pumps out here. And what they are, it doesn't necessarily shut off the instant it starts to rain. There's actually a reservoir inside this little pipe and perhaps a cork or another object that floats. And it works somewhat like a toilet valve. When enough water gets inside and it raises the cork up, it'll shut the pumps off. And then when that dries back out again, the pumps will come back on.
Okay.
It's an okay thing to have. I personally feel that since we have an on-site staff that checks these things on a regular basis, I tend to lean towards that more. But yeah, we do have those mechanics in the irrigation systems.
As a resident here, I'm under the understanding that you can go out to all the buildings and on your own have all this work done to make the place look wonderful. Is that true?
We have a lot of residents that call and say, how come our building doesn't look as good as the buildings across the street? And usually I tell them, well, they just recently re-landscaped. They budgeted for it and they had the money, and they went to their director and they said, you know what? We'd like our building to look nicer. We want to have good curb appeal. We've got 2 units for sale, and people see the landscaping first, so it's the most important thing. as people are walking up to the building. So how do we get this done? You tell your director calls us up and says, we want to meet with Valentine, the nursery supervisor, and talk about getting some landscaping that looks like the people across the street. We'll set that up. You'll have your meeting. You can have as many people there as you want, and we can show you pictures. We can direct you to go look at different places and maybe take your own pictures and bring them back to give us ideas of what you'd like to see. We will write up a contract, explain what the work is that's going to be done, and if it's approved, we will schedule the work and get it done.
So this would be a good time as a resident, because the associations are doing their budget now for next year, that they should give a laundry list or something to their directors, or even come to their association meetings and say, how about it, guys? We can make our place look really nice, and what would the price be? Can somebody from the association go see David and his staff and get us numbers, so that when we're in the middle of next year and someone says, how come we don't have the money? Well, to get the money, you got to budget for the money.
That's correct.
And how many times, right. And also as important is you got to convey this to your directors. We've had directors have different personalities. Some don't want to spend money. Some want to make things very lavish. So it's, as a resident, it's important to me that I address how I feel and all the residents in the building, because that's our home, and not just let it go based on the personality of the board as is.
Yeah, there is the right way to do it. I mean, it's easy to just sit back and say, oh, my director doesn't do anything. But it's as a resident, it's your responsibility to let them know, hey, this is my home. I'd like it to look nicer. What can I do to help? I'll be part of the landscape committee. If you've got some ideas, bring them forward. Be positive about it. Don't be negative about it.
And one shortfall we see is all these people, they don't step up and volunteer, and they should, because they got the creative ideas and it would help.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned in series 1 on our building maintenance one, is that it is important for the residents to be involved, and it's your community. And board members are temporary. They'll be in office, and then whether it's 4 years, 6 years, 8 years down the road, they may not be here anymore, and we have to live with those short-term decisions. So as a resident, I have to think long-term. Are we doing the right thing? Are we spending the right money on landscaping? Do we have a plan? Not just go to Walmart, pick a few plants out, and say, ooh, the red looks nice this year, and they die 3 months later.
Yeah, this is why we also assist with the making of the association budgets every year too, because we have many directors, and that perhaps one director has no knowledge of plants whatsoever. They spent their life doing things that are more building oriented, so they may know about concrete and things like that, but they don't have a clue about plants. And the opposite happens as well. So my point is, we take the time to give the associations our suggestions for how much money they should put towards their landscaping and why and where. So we hope that they follow those suggestions, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
So you're not an outside vendor. You're a consultant for these residents to help out the boards to make their property look well. Don't look at me as the enemy. Right.
We're here to help you. Right.
People have this natural thing to think that if you're a worker, you have an interest and you are the enemy. No, you want to give them a big hug and say, I want your property to look good because it's a reflection on you.
Exactly.
And us as Winmore.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're still here. So we definitely take a lot of pride in what we do, because we're going to be looking at it also.
Now, I live on the first floor. And in front of my unit, there's a place where I can actually put my own plants in. So I want to go to Walmart and buy some plants. I have the right to do that, don't I?
No, sorry, you don't.
You mean I can't do it and everybody else could do their own thing too?
You can't. You're not allowed to affect any changes in the common area. That's in your bylaws.
I can understand that, because if I do it, everyone else is doing it, and we're going to have a hodgepodge. There's no plan.
You can put plants on your back patio, inside your screened patio, and that's fine. But Can't go out. Can't go
Right.
outside with them.
Right. Okay. Anything else you want to express before we get to lakes and fountains? Jason?
No, I think you got a lot there. So, but again, anything you need with the grounds department, just give Sarika a call. She's in the office just about all the time. 954-978-2607.
But first go to your director, right?
But first, go to your director.
That's right. Because the director is the one who has to sign the check request to pay the bill for the work that gets done.
That's
They
right.
don't like any surprises.
And don't yell at Sarika if she reminds you gently that, hey, please call your director and have them call it in. She's
Right.
doing her job.
Right. And if your director's out of town or whatever, through our offices, we could probably get in touch with them or their alternates or their representatives and pass along your suggestion to them. That's one thing we're good at is with the afternoon teas and whatever, is we assimilate information from you to your director if there's not that direct communication.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think, David, stay on camera for a while here, or stay with us. Let's introduce Jason Ellington. Jason is very busy on special projects. He does our lakes, our fountains, and he's our liaison within the communities to look at your property and give you correct evaluations or evaluations on what your needs are and suggestions and recommendations. So, Jason, are you aboard?
I'm on board.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you're working on right now?
Some of the projects. Well, we have an upcoming project that I'm in the pre-project planning stages of, which is you mentioned it earlier, dredge socks. This is a huge thing for the community. As David mentioned, the first thing you look at when you walk up to a building is the landscaping. But I believe in total, when you see this community, you do want to see this amazing lake system that we have. These waterways here are majestic, and they can be very complicated to manage. And so to talk a little bit about that, I hope you and I can just have a quick conversation on sort of the difficulties in maintaining such a large body of water.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm a photographer, naturalist, and I go up to Green Cave Park and Waxahachie, boom, 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 whatever that's called, up in Delray.
Mm-hmm.
And as the seasons change, I see things change in the park. And with the waterways, you go in January and it's crystal clear. And then as
Yes.
you go on, you see nature changing, just like whether it's fall up north or snow in the Rockies and whatever. And I know it's natural that sometimes there's a lot of vegetation accumulated in certain areas. And that's nature. Can you explain that type of nature and what that's all about? Because I know that people
Sure.
are concerned they don't understand about that.
Yes, that's. Thank you so much for asking that question. Yeah, I'm going to bring up a picture actually to discuss this. A little illustration would help. 1 second to do this, and that should be it. Yes.
I said, oh yes, nice, yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about this picture. It will certainly help. What you're referring to, I think Wakadoohatchee or something is the name of it you're referring to in Delray. Yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. What we're looking at in this picture is what most residents here are referring to when they are calling, or when they're complaining, I should say, about the messiness of the lakes. These floating mats of vegetation we're looking at, this occurs as a seasonal oddity, I guess you would say. It's a seasonal occurrence is what it is. It's basically June through October, the warmer months of the year. We see this happen due to the aquatic submersed plants that exist below the waterline. This picture shows many things actually, and I'll point them out to you. The mat that we're seeing, I'm going to run my cursor over this. This is the result of lake treatments, lake applications to the lake to quell or to cull the submersed aquatic plants that are living just underneath this mat that you really can't see right now. And those plants that they're trying to control are hydrilla. You can see this hydrilla. You can look this up. This is a USDA website I'm looking at. This is a nationally invasive plant. It's invasive, and when more, it's invasive everywhere in the country. And we all of us freshwater sort of managers battle this invasive plant. Windmore's certainly no exception. So when the lake treatment is made, the company comes in and does the treatments for us bi-weekly, I should say. It's every 2 weeks they come. They spray chemicals, herbicides, aquatic herbicides, safe for the lake and for the aquatic fish and wildlife. And the result of those treatments is a dying back of the plants, the hydrilla, some Vallisneria, another plant I would name. These plants die back, and as they die, they decompose, they create buoyancy, gases expand inside them, all that sciencey stuff, and it floats to the top, and you're left with this sort of nasty, messy look. It just looks like an unkept lake. So what I would say about this is it's natural, it's a normal occurrence, it's a seasonal occurrence. It happens in every freshwater lake. It just happens to different degrees, and there are reasons for that. I certainly could go into that. I won't now, other than to say the deeper your littoral shelf is, which is basically everything in this picture that you see with these nasty mats on top, that's about the littoral shelf of this particular area. The deeper that littoral shelf is, the less of this messiness you will see. And so not all lakes are created equal. Windmore's lake system, being we're guessing 50 years old, no one knows exactly for sure when it was dug, has gone through a lot of changes. And you can see from this picture, this is a wonderful picture, it shows many things. You can see the erosion that's happened over the last 50 years. You can see that primarily from these pipes sticking out of the ground, these white pipes. These are downspouts connected to the building for water, for rainfall runoff, gutters, if you will. And when we installed these pipes 20 some odd years ago, you could only see a few inches of them sticking out. And now you can see in some cases up to 5-6 feet of these pipes showing. And that's erosion for you. So over the years, that erosion has caused the soil to fall down, which creates a shallower littoral shelf, which is what we're looking at right now. The shallowness of that littoral shelf grows plants. Plants need sunlight. Aquatic plants need sunlight and warm water to propagate freely. In the summer months of the year, this goes more to your question, Bruce, in the summer months of the year, it's warmer and we have longer daylight hours. It's the perfect storm for aquatic plants in a shallow environment to explode. And so that's what happens every season in Windmore between roughly June and October. We have an explosion of aquatic plant growth. I should say aquatic weeds. We don't want these plants. These are considered weeds to us. Hydrilla is a weed, an invasive weed. But they explode in growth due to those natural, normal occurrences by the environment. Our lake maintenance company, the one we hired to come out and do this every 2 weeks, they're under contract to take care of the situation. This is the best that it can get. This is the result of their treatments, Bruce. So no matter how hard they try, and staying within the law, which they must, to not affect any wildlife or fish by overspraying, if you will, or adding too many chemicals. This is the result we're left with when they finish treating. It's the decomposing of these plants that rise to the top, and that's what we see in this picture. But again, this is a stackable problem, and the stack comes from the shallow littoral shelf with all of the plant material in it primarily. That would take us back to the dredge stocks thing, and a partial, I should say, a probable solution to the majority of these plant problems we're talking about. That was a long answer for that question. I hope it worked for you.
I know you're a naturalist too, and you understand this stuff, and it just happens. But there have been things in nature that should not happen. We had these invasive species, iguanas, snakeheads, and the Egyptian geese. I know you're very concerned about the control of them, because how does it affect the rest of our natural environment, our natural birds and stuff?
Wow, that's a great question. I am very passionate about it, as are you. You and I talk about the limpkins often. We both love the limpkins here.
That's
and
not
they
a
are
family. That's a bird. It's not a family.
That's right. That's a bird. That's right. Yeah, and the natives are struggling here, Bruce. It's unfortunate. The limpkins, the blue herons, the great egrets, the wood storks that we've been so lucky to have. We've had some roseate spoonbills fly in that flew right back out. We've got some pelicans. They'll stick around for a while. But what's happening is what you're referring to, these non-native invasives the Egyptian geese, the Muscovy ducks. I mean, they're not from this country. They have no known predators. There's nothing out there controlling them other than human beings, and we're not really doing a good job at that. The iguanas, same thing, not from this country. Lots of teenagers back in the 90s thought they were cool pets and let them out when they couldn't take care of them anymore, and now we have this problem. Same thing with the pythons. Same thing with the snakehead fish, okay, that we have in this lake. Well, they're native. We don't. I like them. They actually are taking care of our Muscovy duck problem to some degree. So I encourage them to be here. They are very helpful and do not harm anything. However, the invasive non-natives, these are the guys that are really creating problems, Bruce, for our native animals. And they're struggling. And I'll tell you, I can show you pictures. I'm not going to, but the moorhens, everyone that loves the little black moorhens with the little red beaks, right? Well, they're in such a frantic state that they are now altering the way they nest. They nest on your lake fountains instead of in the marshy areas of the lake banks where they would prefer to nest. They're not safe there anymore. Their eggs are being eaten by these iguanas mainly, or disrupted by the iguanas, or the non-native birds that are competing for space. The non-natives are pushing the moorhens to have to find new ways to nest, and so they found the lake fountains to put their nests on, thinking that that would provide some safety to be able to have a full clutch, to hatch a full clutch. And the iguanas just swim out there and eat their eggs, And so these non-native invasive animals are a real threat. I'm glad that Winmore is, concerned, and I'd like to see us really take a stance here. It's just unfortunate that a lot of people don't see the damage, Bruce, that it causes to the natives. No one's sticking up for the natives that belong here, that have spent the last 10,000 years living in Florida and dealing with human beings. They're not the ones pooping on your golf greens. They're not the ones eating other animals' eggs. They've learned how to live with us. These non-natives have not learned how to live with us. And they are the ones causing all the problems, especially to the native animals. Not only the humans, but the native animals. So I'd like to see us take a stronger approach to this if we can. It takes people really getting behind this and supporting it as a community. It's got to be a community-wide effort, or it just will fail. And unfortunately, the natives are going to suffer for that if that happens.
So as a resident, when I'm feeding the Muscovy ducks, I think I'm doing a good thing because they're cute and they got little babies and they grow up. But really, I'm hurting other species that live here, and we're chasing them out of here. And they're getting
That's exactly right.
Extinction or.
That's exactly right. And the most dangerous thing about a non-native invasive is how cute the babies are. If the babies are cute, forget it. You're not ever going to get rid of them. People will not allow it. And these chicks, these little baby Muscovy ducks and little baby Egyptian geese are the cutest you'll ever see. But they grow up to become adults, and they also will go right after a limpkin egg or go right after a blue heron baby and try to kill them to compete for space. And that's just the way nature works, unfortunately. We shouldn't have these animals here, but we do. We should deal with it the best way we can.
Jason, let me give you a little anecdote. I moved down here about 40 years ago. You come up to an ibis, they would run away. You couldn't get close. Now you see them like cows out there in the field. They even cross the street. They're not afraid of us because over the years with all the construction, development, hurricanes, whatever, their natural habitat is not as expansive, and they've had to learn to live with us. So they can't run away like they used to. They have to deal with us. And that's really sad because they put themselves in a position where it's dangerous to them to live, and it's really sad. They should be able to understand humans are not their friends and they don't have to live with us, but because of the environment and you're not helping them by feeding them because that's not their natural diet. So everybody that thinks these animals need their own environment and they need whatever, but things have changed. Florida is not the Florida it was 40 years ago, when the world ended at 441. Okay, now it's all the way out to the Everglades.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that you have to go to these wildlife parks now to see the natives. You should be able to come right here in Winmore, look out your back door, but the natives are dwindling, unfortunately, due to these invasive issues.
Jason, let's change the subject to fountains and aerators.
Sure.
What's the difference between the two? And is it more than just decorative?
Yes. So the difference between the two is the aerators we have, the bubbles you see in the lake. Usually near a fountain, you'll see one, although that's not for any reason, any specific reason. The bottom-up aeration is what it's called. It's a pad that sits on the bottom of the lake floor, and it 24/7, 365 pumps fresh oxygen into the lake from the very bottom of the water column all the way to the top. It provides 100% of the water column with oxygen, which is what all of these fish and aquatic wildlife need. It eliminates the anaerobic bacteria that we did have, that up to 40% of our water column was filled with anaerobic bacteria, which was causing tremendous problems in our irrigation through what we're irrigating the property with. We irrigate from this lake system. We need this lake system to be as healthy as it can possibly be to provide the most healthy water we can provide. And so we take great strides in making sure that this water is as healthy as it can be, no matter what it looks like to us. If you test it, it is healthy. And that's the key thing. And so in dealing, in making sure that this happens, that the water is as healthy as it can be, we have to make sure it's as oxygenated as it can be. And so the aeration systems that we put in place back in 2013, we started that project, have worked out wonderfully. We took a lot of samples before, we took a lot of samples during, and we've taken samples after, and we found that we went, as I mentioned, from almost no oxygen in this water column, creating a very small space for these animals to live, to 100% oxygen, opening up the rest of the lake for these animals. So what we've gotten now are more fish, larger fish. They're able to dive deeper and live in deeper waters and grow larger. We've gotten better wildlife out of this particular project, this aeration project. The wildlife that we've seen has been of a higher quality, other than the non-natives pushing them back out. So we did one thing that helped, and then another thing is hurting. But the aeration is, in and of itself, is primarily meant to oxygenate the water, and that is it, nothing else. It does a fantastic job of doing that, and I'm very, very happy that we have these systems in place. The fountains are primarily aesthetic. There are fountains that are called aeration fountains. There is one, if you go to the Publix in Winston Park, I believe it is, right up the road. Winston Trails, Winston Park, right up, just north of us. Yeah. There's a lake behind that Publix, and they have a massive fountain. It's the one I would want for Winmore. If we were to get $50,000 or $60,000 for a fountain, I would want this fountain in Winmore. I know right where I'd want to put it too. But it's an aeration jet fountain, and if you see it, you'll immediately understand that definitely does aerate water. It's a very, very impressive thing to see. But the aeration fountains are sort of specific to themselves. All other fountains do a good job of sort of churning up the water around them. They don't really aerate the lake area. They only aerate the water around them. And so that's the difference. Our bottom-up aerations that we have throughout this system, they provide all of the oxygen this lake needs. So the fountains are mostly aesthetic for us.
So as a resident, that was a wonderful explanation, but I'm going to tell you the two things I'm interested in. The timer's not working and the light bulbs are out, right? Now, what do I do if I see that? That's a council thing, so don't call your association director. If we don't see it, you can report that to the office, correct? That's underground?
Actually, no. It's the timers and the lights are actually building maintenance. Those are electrical issues, and they stay with the electricians for that reason. And they've to this point been handling that. If that changes in the future, it will. But for now, that's a building maintenance issue. And
they should call Mary Marie's office. But if they call yours, you will get them the message.
Oh yeah, absolutely, sure, yeah. And the timers, I just learned this myself, by the way. I didn't realize that there's power failures throughout Winmore frequently, and those timers are on electricity. And so when that happens, sometimes the timing gets off if they're not reset frequently. So that's a maintenance thing that we should all just do a better job of watching.
Well, thank you, Jason, very much. And David, you still with us over there? David, come back.
I'm still here.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up and see if we answered the questions that people want to know. So you've explained how Winmore operates. Anything else you want to talk about that? Go through your association, let them know, let your directors know. If it's something that you can't communicate or needs to be done, let us know and we'll let your director know. Um, Everyone understands the relationship, again, with their association and themselves. But council is a different animal. Council is everything outside your village, which is the roadways. As far as you're concerned, it would be the main gate areas, down here by administration, the racket center, the country club, right. And so if people see things on that, they just call the office and let us know. We'll be glad to correct that. And why do we exist? We're here. We're here. We created a co-op. We have a situation in Winmore. We can get everything done. You're here to advise, help, get things done quickly. That's why we're here, and it's been effective over 40 years, and that's what makes Winmore who we are. Anything you want to add to that, or have I killed it?
No, I think you got it, nailed it down pretty good. When we do ask you to notify your director, it's the right way to go. If all the residents called in, the phones would just never stop. So let's do it the right way and make sure your director or your president is aware of your concerns, and they will do their job and let us know.
And we appreciate the residents that go and they take the time and stop. They see a guy blowing the leaf and they'll say, good job. They know it's like 400 degrees out there and these guys are working hard. It's not easy and it's brutal. And they do appreciate it because I know they call me, I get notes, and I see people stopping on the road and waving to them and thanking them. And they're very good as far as letting traffic go. And yeah, they're very responsive.
Yeah. We do get nice calls also, calls with compliments.
No, those were the nice calls. I don't know about the others. No, you guys do a great job.
So,
And everybody says it, that Winmore is the best kept secret because, you know, we're not responsible for the outside, but once you get inside, it was like paradise. But now the city has stepped up. They've taken responsibility for the outside. They put that walkway in there and they've done some landscape. Maybe you would have done it differently. I know. And they got the lighting out there, but our main gate and our west gate is 200% better. You put all those plants in there and we keep that up. Yeah, everything's wonderful there. So keep up the good work and thank you. And I hope all the residents understand how Winmore operates here.
thank you, and we appreciate your support as well.
Thank you. And thank you to all the Winmore residents out there. And we'll see you next time. Bye now.